Good evening. Welcome everybody. Just want to welcome you all in your homes. I believe that those who are not affected by the load shedding and in our banana republic, and they are able to now warm themselves up and have yourself a bit of a coffee or cup of coffee and your green teas as we're going to have such a great talk. And I believe that we all are to participate, and in order to get to take this, meaning, moreover, I would say, take this information to the ends of the world. As you are coming through, I want to welcome you all. Come through, welcome. It is that evening, wherever you are watching from, wherever you are coming from. We just want to say to all of you, thank you so much for coming aboard. Let us just begin to now as we, engage, especially in this evening. It is Kairos TV, the final word, with myself, BJ Langa. I'm standing out, and I have in the studio my guest and the director, Director Michael Swain of 4SA. And I believe that there's a lot that needs to be outlined, a lot that needs to be put out there. And we cannot do this without you, without your help, without you coming on board, without you acknowledging, meaning what is actually now being now put on our table. So, meaning all our civil rights organizations that are out there, I want to big them up. I want to just say salutations are in order, and we quietly could say we need such kind of advocacy and people who would, meaning moreover, not just meaning operate in the walls, of the church, but they will operate beyond the walls of the church as we are dealing with this barbaric, illicit kind of tendency that is actually now looking at putting down that which our God has given to us. So, everyone from all walks of faith, I welcome you all, wherever you are coming from. And I believe that we're going to have a night, and we all are going to have a great night. And what you can do with me right now, let us just share this broadcast, to the ends of the world. Touch your friends, touch your pastor. I need all pastors, every fraternity, every leader in Gauteng, in Western Cape, Free State, all 9 provinces. May we call upon, and those in the diaspora, because this is a table that needs us to come and participate on. It's a table of legislature, and we're talking tonight legislative talk. And I believe that it's going to be the night. Now, let's invite as many people as we can, and we're taking this a minute to the ends of the world. Share this broadcast to each and every one that you actually know, and especially the leadership of the churches and all leaders in the walks of faith, in the religious spectrum. Call all of them, because there are things that actually happens and they happen in your absence, and moreover times you find out when you hear about them, they're already out there. Now there is no law, meaning, or I would say, there is no law that is enforced in our nation that's not given opportunity or placed at a certain place before the public for you as the public to absolutely now, whether you are standing with it or against it or pushing it back. So every law or every bill that is actually now assented to be law, and in our nation, we all are given an opportunity as the people of this nation in order to stand and fight against it, or fight, with it, in order for it to be, also ascended into law. So it's very much important. Many things have happened. I've just spoken to Director Swain, and some of the things that I believe that you don't even know about. In the case of, now, I'm speaking to people who are talking to me from my office, who says now some of them, they wanted to know how did it come about that we have lost prayers in our schools. How did it come about that we have lost I would say, us praying in schools? And some, they don't even know that a resolution is already being us, signed for us to continue doing that which we have been doing. And most people, those who are doing evangelism in schools and going there to pray for the children and so forth, they are not praying for the children. Hence, we are having today, kids are fighting one another. Kids are suicidal. Kids are killing one another. Kids are killing students. Their teachers, and there are fights between students and teachers. And there's so much that is happening in our schools because of we have chucked out prayers. But now, how did they chuck these prayers out? Even in the times of asthma, these prayers were chucked out over a night. You see, there are what we call bills that are passed, and the DOJ will take such, and if it concerns, especially when it they will take them there and they will pass them, and they had to contest them at the in the parliament. And moreover, before even the president can assent that bill, there is a need that it will be put out there sometimes on the government gazette for people to really participate. And the problem is sometimes people don't participate because they don't know. And can I talk to pastors then bishops, and it's about time breaking the walls of the church and making sure that we're doing what needs to be done, which is the Great Commission, coming out and begin to serve our communities. And the other way of serving them is to make sure that we preserve the law. I always say, these are my words to say, the prophecy that we are actually now professing, that prophecy needs to become law in order to be effective. That prophecy needs to be law, not just to prophesy, or even the preaching that we hear being preached on pulpits. They need to become law so that we can absolutely reform the canonicity of the word of God. In our nation, it's very much important, because once we are standing there for the reforms of the canonicity, we are absolutely now, we are releasing what we call meaning the inerrancy, of the word of God. The word of God will stand no matter what the enemy can do. I've never seen anybody fighting the church or fighting God and winning the battle. Some will be twisted on their hips. If you remember the case of Jacob, some will get new names. They'll be twisted on their hips. Nobody will win. No organization will ever win. No government shall ever win a fight that fights against God, who's the creator of the heavens and the earth. So we're not just talking church and walls. We are talking the body. We are talking the kingdom. And we are saying all people of all walks of faith, come on board. Let's invite them. Let's invite our groups. I have in the studio director Swain. I'm telling you, I'm so inspired. Before even I begin, I'm so inspired. Before I bring him in South Africa, I need you wherever you are. Let's invite as many as we can. We need to make sure that this notion that there's ignorance, especially in the fraternity of the church. We have done about it, and now we are coming. We are hands-on, and even when it comes to godly governance or kingdom governance, we are hands-on, and we are tackling things, and we are definitely are participating on the matters of such national interest. So tonight, I'm having in the studio none other than Director Michael Swain, from FORSA, Freedom of Religion, South Africa, who has come to outline certain matters that I believe that needs to be outlined, especially when it pertains to legislature. So it is the legislative talk, and we're going to talk heart to heart. And some of the things that you don't know that you need to know, even from him, I believe this is going to be a stage for him to now stage out and begin to put it out there for for SARS actually now being that the civil rights organization that has been actually now advocating meaning for many of us, the church, all people of faith, walks of faith, and sometimes we don't even know when these things are happening. Hence we said, prayer was actually now repealed from schools. Yes, now he's telling me good news that they have actually stood upon it. They have fought it in the court of law, and it came out to be positive. But prayer was taken out, in the days and times of Kairos. And we have to talk about that now. Why and how did it come about when we were there and could not actually stand out to push back such bills? So now for the reason was we were not active. We understand the church. Our ignorance was maybe we thought we were called in the confinements of the wall. So it's about time. The he who has come, he said, I shall break them and on the third day shall they be rebuilt. And I believe we have arrived at the time where the walls need to be now, meaning destroyed for them to be reformed, especially for a remnant that needs to come about and take on, especially in the times that we are living in. I'm so excited, and the time is now, and the time has begun. And let me thank you, and for as you have come once more. Don't forget, wherever you are, let's talk. Welcome you all. Welcome, apostles. I can see. Let's talk from Gauteng. I see now the professor. We've got professor on board also. Now I need each and every one of us to talk about this. Tell me where you are actually now calling us from, so that we can begin to now meaning correspond after we have spoken to Director Swain and know on how to take this about and make sure that we purport a right petition that will absolutely have a weight. Now, hear me. Tonight we are talking on PEPUDA amendment bill, and there are things that we need to know about this bill, and which are of importance. And I believe that tonight you will hear even muchly in order for you to be inspired to hold hands not only with meaning Kairos TV, but hold hands with FORSA and other organizations that are standing and also fighting this fight, meaning moreover of civil rights, and making sure that freedom of religion is absolutely still, I mean, also at your disposal. Now, looking at how things are, there is a word that I want to start with as I'm welcoming Director Michael Swain, meaning also. Now, I need you to understand, even as we are now in this, dark, meaning country of ours, we are in the dark country, and we are actually getting accustomed of this load shedding. But there shall not be load shedding, especially when it comes to knowledge, and especially when it comes to such talks. We'll continue, and we need to engage to make sure that our people are definitely enlightened on what is going on. So now this is a statement. Now I'm going to open quote, which was actually declared by Freedom of Religion, South Africa, on this PEPUDA amendment bill. It says, open quote, the greatest threat to religious freedom yet. Now, what does that mean? That must absolutely now, open you out and say, now, what is the real threat on this bill that we are all standing to push back? So now, I am not going to now bring all the answers, but I am having in the studio none other than himself, Director Michael Swain from Freedom of Religion SA. And I want to just welcome you, Director Swain. Thank you so much for taking our invitation and coming on board, especially in such a very, busy time, in our time. And I just want to thank you, and we all want to welcome you as South Africans, and want to hear from you, want to hear your heart, and also, your advocacy, because you have been doing this for such a time and for a longer time. And one of the things that I was indicating is that even the people that you are advocating for, they, moreover, some of them have not, meaning participated. Some not because of they did not, meaning they knew. Some they never knew even on how to go about in terms of participation. But tonight we're opening all portals to make sure that everyone can come on board and hold hands with for SA, which is Freedom of Religion, South Africa. Welcome, Director Michael Swain, and you can greet, meaning all our viewers that are out there. And I believe that we'll be blessed to hear from you tonight. Thank you so much, sir.
Well, good evening, Dr. Langa, and thank you so much for having me on Kairos TV. It's a great privilege and honor to be with you, and let's hope we're going to have an interesting discussion.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely, Director Swain. Thank you so much for that short introduction and also greetings. And I'm also trusting that we're going to have now not only that we give them information, but educate our people, especially the ordinary people of South Africa. Now, let me just start by Director Swain, and as we are actually now, beginning our engagement in this talk, PEPUDA amendment bill. Now, when one hears about this, now it seems as if now you need to have, meaning a kind of a law or an ear of a law or an ear that is inclined has an inclination of law. It's like this is more deeper than a pastor on the pulpit, or a bishop in the church. Now, what is this PEPUDA amendment bill? How you know it more over than I would say people that are actually watching. What is PEPUDA amendment bill?
Okay, well, PEPUDA stands for the Promotion of Equality and Prevention of Unfair Discrimination Act. In other words, it is a law of the land. It was passed in the year 2000, and it was passed to give effect to a section in our Constitution, Section 9, which is known as the Equality Clause, which basically says that everybody is equal before the law. Everybody should enjoy equal rights and freedoms. Nobody should be discriminated against either by the state or by other people. And it also protects human dignity, and it also prohibits hate speech. So it covers a lot of ground. The difference, of course, between an act, which is PEPUDA is also known as the Equality Act, and a bill is a kind of an act in the making. In other words, it's a draft. And that's why this bill is open for comment. The Department of Justice released it just before Easter, and they only gave, for some very unusual reason, 30 days to comment on it. And considering the importance of this law, the PEPUDA, if it were to be amended, after the Constitution, it is the premier piece of legislation in South Africa. In other words, every other piece of legislation must comply with PEPUDA. So PEPUDA is, if you like, the apex or the top of our legislative framework, if you like, our legal framework after the Constitution.
Wow. It's moreover, yes, the top in terms of the legislative framework after the Constitution. So what would happen if this Promotion of Equality and Prevention of Unfair Discrimination Act is enforced, especially pertaining to what we are actually fighting now? Because I believe that there are a couple of acts that you've been actually now standing against. And now, what is it now that made not only even for SA, but it also across the line? I saw the ACDP, I saw AfriForum, I saw many other. They are coming on board and they are saying, no, we need to push this back and to make sure that we prevent it, and then moreover we prohibit what is being actually put before the parliament. Now, what exactly was actually presented before in the parliament that you, with your own mouth, you declared, as I said, open quote, that it would be the greatest threat against or towards freedom of religion?
Okay, well, it's probably worthwhile saying up front that, of course, if you think about promoting equality or preventing unfair discrimination, I think everybody would say that's a good thing to do. But where we have a problem is in the definition of the words. So the problem with this amendment bill, the amendment bill changes, it broadens massively the definitions of discrimination, it broadens the definitions of equality, and it also broadens the liability. In other words, people who can actually be legislated against or litigated against, rather, under this act. So maybe I could start off by just talking about discrimination. Would you think that would be helpful?
That's right.
So the first thing that you test is, has discrimination taken place? This is what the existing PEPUDA does, and this is what it will continue to do. And discrimination is basically any act or omission that imposes a burden or an obligation or a disadvantage that it doesn't impose on another, or alternatively, withholding a benefit or an advantage or an opportunity that it gives to another. So it's supposed to be basically a level playing field. And what it does is, of course, it says that you can be discriminated against, or rather you cannot be discriminated against on, and they list a number of grounds, of categories, like race, like language, like sex, gender, sexual orientation, religion, and so on and so forth. Now, the problem is this, that under this existing Act of Parliament, PEPUDA in its existing form, which will continue, once you have shown discrimination, in other words, once you can show that you have been discriminated against under one of those grounds, that something has been withheld from you or something's been given to somebody that should have been given to you, then it automatically is assumed that it is unfair. So discrimination, once you've shown it, becomes effectively unfair. In other words, you as the person who is now, if you like, being complained against, you are the discriminating person, you now have to show it was fair. So you have to prove, if you like, that what you did, which was discriminatory, was in fact fair, was in fact justifiable. The problem is this, that when the PEPUDA tests for fairness, even though under our Constitution, all the rights under the Constitution, for example, freedom of religion, sexual orientation, gender, and so on, they all have equal status under the law. There is no hierarchy. The courts have decided that. But when it comes to this test for fairness under the PEPUDA Act, it weights it very heavily in favor of the person who is claiming discrimination. So, for example, you have to prove, when you're trying to prove fairness, whether the discrimination impaired the other person's human dignity, whether the person complaining of discrimination suffered from patterns of disadvantage or belongs to a group that suffered from patterns of disadvantage. In other words, all the minority groups, or alternatively, the impact of the discrimination. How do they feel about the impact of the discrimination? And so, as you can tell just from those three categories, it is very difficult to prove fairness. So we've dealt with multiple cases where somebody has complained of discrimination, and when the person says, yes, but the discrimination was not because I dislike the person or even that I have anything against that group or that orientation or whatever it may be, but it was simply because my sincerely held belief, my faith, does not allow me in good conscience to either do something or to grant something or whatever it may be. But that doesn't count. So you are already on the back foot. So we have found multiple cases, and we're dealing with cases where people of faith have been accused under this existing act of discrimination, and for them to prove that their discrimination was fair based upon simply what they believe is very, very difficult. But under the amendment bill, it gets a whole lot worse.
Okay, now let me just take this forth because I see here there are key elements that were outlined, which are the first, number one, the prevention of unfair discrimination, as you are actually now, talking on it now, and the promotion of equality, as you said, is an Equality Act. Now, let me just. So, are you saying that the amendment bill seeks to address something else now? Because now, as we know it, it's the bill itself was supposed to now protect, if I have to put it that way, to prevent and to promote that equality. And yes, as you say, even to a layman, it sounds, it sounds as if it's a good deed. When you say we want to work on, preventing unfair discrimination, or also either promoting equality. Now, this amendment bill seeks to address, moreover, if I can put it, the weaknesses in the promotion of equality and the prevention of unfair discrimination, as it was in that Act 4 of 2000, now of the PEPUDA, or the Equality Act. Now, however, there are things that are there which I went through them just to check on and see on it, but which you have touched. Now, you have dealt with the significant broadening, of the definition of discrimination and the one of equality, which is found in the very act. And if I may ask, is there a particular group? Because when I was also studying myself, studying this bill and getting to understand it from, Act for 2000 and coming down to when it was also amended in 2006. So I had to look at, meaning certain things there, because I wanted to understand exactly what are we dealing with here, so that at the end of the day we are able to can absolutely, uphold a good petition here, that would absolutely meaning begin to now protect the real people that needs to be protected. Now you look at it, it was amended in 2002, and we saw again there were judicial matters in terms of its amendment, Act 22 of 2005. It went to 2008, Act 66. So amendments are there, as we always say that now before a bill or a meaning can be assented to law, then it needs to pass into the parliament. So all this time, it goes and it comes, it goes and it comes. But now the effect of this bill, if it happens that nobody stands on it, and it actually now become effective, is it in how it's been put that by the 30th of June, it will be our last day of us maybe having a talk on such a matter, and then the bill can be effective and so forth. And what impact will that meaning do to? Let me just come straight to the church. What impact will it do to the church?
Well, let me give you basically a couple of the ways that it's going to expand the definitions, because this is where the problem comes in. So prejudice is now being, so discrimination is now being defined. Additional categories are added, which will show that you have discriminated. One is causing somebody prejudice. That's one. So if you cause somebody prejudice, another one is, or otherwise undermine their dignity, then there is also, by the way, expressly no intention necessary, whether you intend to or not, whether you meant to or not, that will count as discrimination. And once you've proven discrimination, then you are caught in the net. And as I said to you, it becomes extremely difficult to justify on the grounds of your faith that you have discriminated fairly. So let me give you, for example, you and I are talking on the television, and you ask me a question, and somebody feels prejudiced by what you said. You've maybe made some statements, whether you meant to offend them or upset them or prejudice them or undermine their dignity or not. Somebody says that something that you said, I felt prejudiced. Something that you said undermined my dignity. Now, whether you meant to or not, whether you intended to or not, you are now having to face a charge of basically unfair discrimination. And not just you, by the way, because your station will be equally liable as well. If I say something on your show, then I would also be in the net. So would you, and so would your TV station. And every one of us would be basically liable under this bill. And potentially we can pay serious amounts of damages. Let me give you one instance. We're dealing with a case at the moment where a wedding venue turned away a same-sex couple, not because they don't approve of their sexual orientation. They welcome everybody to their property. They just simply said that they could not celebrate a marriage because they did not believe that the marriage that they were wanting to celebrate was something that they could legitimately, in good conscience and according to their faith, support. So they very graciously said, look, I'm afraid we really, please respect us, respect the dignity of our faith, and please just, don't force us to do something that we are not comfortable with doing. They wouldn't, for example, equally marry a polygamous marriage. They wouldn't allow, for example, a seance or something to take place on their property. They say, we welcome all people. We just should not be forced to do all events on our property. Not only are they being litigated against by the South African Human Rights Commission, but the couple have also launched a lawsuit against them. They want 2 million rands worth of damages. Now, bear in mind that when the state, through the South African Human Rights Commission, brings litigation against you, they're paying for that litigation with taxpayer money, your taxpayer money, my taxpayer money. But if I'm the one in the crosshairs, I have to fund my own legal defense. And they fight these things right through because they have bottomless pockets. They're using your money and my money. They don't care how much it costs. And if it goes through to the Constitutional Court, on average, you can look between maybe 5 and 7, 8 million rands worth of costs just for legal fees to get to that level. In other words, if you've got to defend yourself right through to the end. How many people, how many churches have got that type of money that they can defend themselves? And so what they hope to do, and it's often activists who basically persuade the institutions of state to act on their behalf, is to set legal precedents, which is exactly what we need to avoid and why we need to fight back, in order to establish principles that will be detrimental to us. It will silence us. It will fine us. It will potentially ruin businesses, ruin private people, ruin churches. So it gets worse under this act, by the way, because there is a clause under this act which says that legal aid can be granted to persons who wish to institute proceedings in terms of this act. In other words, if you feel that you've been prejudiced, if you feel that you have had your dignity undermined, you can go to government, to the legal aid, and you can get money from them. And let me tell you, activists cannot wait for this to be passed. I've read an article by a professor of constitutional law, in other words, somebody who knows the law, and he himself is an activist for the LGBT cause. Now, that's not an issue, but this is what he basically said in his article. He said that, among other things, this bill will not allow organizations or individuals to, and I quote him, to escape censure for their outrageous and harmful views merely because these are couched in religious terms. And the state funding will allow them to attack, and I quote him again, the corrosive impact of religious teachings and the harm caused by them. Now, when you start giving people like that access to state funds to bring litigation against people who they feel have somehow caused them prejudice or undermined their dignity, you can imagine it's going to unleash massive amounts of litigation against people of faith, organizations of faith, and that in itself should scare the living daylights out of you.
I actually, I think we are touching it where I wanted to be, Director Swain. I want us to talk on those examples because, what I want to do is that I want to give the people the opportunity, because we're going to circulate even the email that you have sent and around. So we circulate on to everybody so people can go through, because we are now calling for leaders to go and read, and get to now under scrutiny and get to understand what we're talking about. But when you are throwing these kind of examples, now it becomes even so practical. Now people understand actually the danger, what we are actually up against. Now you're saying to me that it will just be meaning one will be talking like right on the station or anywhere, maybe preaching on the pulpit or anywhere, maybe or in the bars or somewhere they'll be speaking and trying to speak the word. And if they are preaching the word of faith, then like I'm adding on what you say, then the one who's preaching, whether knowingly or unknowingly, consciously or unconsciously, maybe preaching something that the other person does not like, and then he or she would be having the right now to can say, or maybe put it more over as a discrimination, whether one say it's more of a word, your word is more of a prejudice, and then it qualifies for me to can now take it for litigation, or if it's a big church or a small church, or so I really agree, because yes, most churches don't even have the kind of monies in order to the one that will be fighting those litigations. And if that's the case, yes, now I'm in agreement with you. Now I'm standing now to say we definitely are it's a threat, and I agree, because it also takes us back to a real prejudice, because what I've been saying all along is that now the prejudice and that we're having even against the church, or I would say now the hate that we're having that against the people of faith, it's becoming vivid. Now the fight now You can see now, even if as politics are leaders of the government, but you can actually tell that in the next few months, the fight we are going to have, even in our government, will be the fight between it is spiritual fight. So hence, when you are calling for spiritual leaders and people of all walks and even community members to get to understand what is really happening here, because you cannot be in a state where everyone wants to be satisfied. We can't satisfy everybody, and any state that has no law and base on what we are standing on, because we can't be a secular state. It's important for us to know who we are. We are an Nkosikelele kind of a state. We are an Nkosikelele kind of state. So it matters not what propaganda or what media propagandize. We are an Nkosikelele kind of a state that says we believe in God and we trust in God. And that is not discrimination to anybody. Anyone who comes and tells us that it's discrimination, they need to also put their faith. So I'm just adding on what you're saying here, Director Swain, to give you a breath, because you have just spoken mouthful. And I want to say we definitely are meaning in days which I believe that people are using, meaning they are propagandizing. And while most of the community that you might be advocating for, much of them, they don't even know what we are talking about now. They are looking forward to preach tomorrow. Some of them might be in prison. Some of them might find themselves in the court of law, having to actually now fight such litigation because they spoke about Jesus. You can't call Jesus on Kairos. You can't call, that, but they can call whoever they want anywhere else. So this is Kairos TV, the final word. We talk about Jesus. So now, in other words, there's no prejudice. There's no one who can say, "Don't talk about this." So now, I am standing with you to. I need the other person to understand what we are talking about, because I had to go through the bill and I got to understand. And absolutely, I can tell you, I was like, "What is this?" Because now, if they are taking it, meaning into the parliament, the DOJ, and now it is taken for, then we are given opportunity to fight it. But to find that we don't have the people that we are advocating for are not there. And these are the same people who are going to suffer the consequences of what is happening. It happened even before, it still can happen. So now let me just, let's dip it in on something else. Maybe you could also give us another example. I take the example of the wedding where they said we cannot wed, meaning the same sex, meaning couples. And it was all over the news. We know about it. It was there all over the news. And we know what really happened, transpired even thereafter. But now, so it means many of these kind of occurrences, will come as phenomena, and definitely coming moreover against, especially the religious sector. So now, what is it that needs to be done now? As before we maybe talk, what is it that can be done by the people of all walks of faith in order to make an assurance that they are ahead and they also maintain the origins? Because remember, we cannot sail into revolution or evolution, as one can call it, but there is what we call origin. And if people are not granted the opportunity to absolutely stand for the origin of origins, or moreover enforce the canonicity, of the, or meaning we would say biblical laws, then it means that yes, it's true. The church, or meaning the people of faith, have come to a place where absolutely they would face such kind of meaning oppression and degradation, if I could say, which human kind of never faced before. So what is it that has to be done in such a time as this? Because what you've just said right now, it's quite a serious that needs to be adhered. What is it that we should do? What is it that now the people of faith and all in the religious sector should do in order to make an assurance that their voices are heard? Because these are the silent majority. What is it that they should do? What advice can you give?
Well, the advice that I can give, obviously, is we have to send submissions to the Department of Justice before June the 30th. And it is very, very easy to do that. What you need to do is you need to go to the Freedom of Religion South Africa website. That is FORSA or FORSA, FORSA.org.za. FORSA.org.za, forsa.org.za, and you will see immediately on the homepage there's a link. You can click on it. You can go through and answer very simple 3 little clicks, and you can then send your submission off to the Department of Justice, and we give you very good reasons as to why you should actually push back against it on the site. So you can look at those, you can read those. We've got some videos there, little short videos on different sections of it that you can look at. And you must, please, send a submission in. If we don't send submissions in, then we will live with the results. Let me give you a for instance. You may recall that there was recently the Civil Union Amendment Bill. And the goal of that bill was exclusively to take away conscientious objection rights, religious freedom rights from state-employed marriage officers. They were originally granted that protection expressly in the Act as a result of a constitutional court judgment which said that it should be there. It was taken away. There was a big campaign. We fought very hard to make sure that that conscientious objection rights were kept, because why should you not be able to celebrate or enjoy freedom of religion just because you work for the state? That makes no sense. It's illogical, and we believe it's unlawful. But when it came down to it, and this was a long fight, probably about 2 years, when it came to the end of it, we were in Parliament when the final decision was made, and the chairman had on his desk the petitions from religious organizations who had objected to the removal of the conscientious objection rights. They had about 10 or 12, just a very few. On the other side were the submissions made by activists who wanted, obviously, that religious freedom right taken away. They had about 450. There were so many submissions asking for people's religious rights to be removed if you work for the state as a marriage officer, that they were literally falling off the table. And the chairman simply said, the people have spoken. Now, if we don't push back against this, we could very well find ourselves in exactly that position. We live in a democracy. We need to make our voices heard while we have the opportunity. And we have until the 30th of June to make submissions on this bill. And it gets worse and worse. I haven't even started to tell you. For example, it expands the definition of equality to include equal access to rights, to resources, opportunities, benefits, and advantages. That means that everybody's entitled to be a member of your church. Everybody is entitled to work for your church, to serve as a leader for your church. It doesn't matter whether they even believe the way you do or not. If you're giving that benefit or that advantage or that opportunity to someone, they're entitled to it too. If you, as an organization, cause anyone, encourage anyone, or request any other person to discriminate against another person, then you are deemed to have discriminated against such a person. Let me give you a for instance there. If you on this station ask a question in the course of the interview that I might feel, then supposing that I decide I've been prejudiced by that, or I've had my dignity undermined, and I bring a case for under this amendment bill for discrimination against you, which would be unfair if I can show that I felt that, and it's really very subjective, then not only are you liable, but the radio station's also liable. It's called joint and several liability. If you as a pastor preach a message and somebody acts upon that message and discriminates against somebody else under this act, and they say, well, I'm only doing this because the pastor said it on Sunday, then they're obviously up for discrimination. So is the pastor, so is the church. So the liability is extended drastically. And that's why this act, it's unprecedented. It's extraordinary. No intention is required. The liability is so wide that even if you had no idea of the discrimination that was taking place as, the radio station or as the church, you're still liable. So we have to push back against this. I want to just say one more thing, maybe. There is also in this bill a duty imposed upon NGOs, community-based organizations, and traditional institutions, which will certainly catch most churches. Many churches have NGO or non-profit status, which says that they must promote equality in their relationships with other bodies and in their public activities. And the equality we're talking about is the equality in this act, and that is established, again, in this bill. It says the responsible minister, in our case, in the religious community, it will probably be the Cogta minister, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma at this point, who must, through regulation or otherwise. Now, we fought hard against regulation, but now they are coming right through the front door with it. Through regulation or otherwise, the minister will determine the measures to be adopted and implemented. In other words, you're going to be forced to implement these and issue a code of practice dealing with the elimination of discrimination and the promotion of equality according to this act. So if you've got any other view in your faith than the government's view on what equality is, you have no option but to put forward their view, not your view. So all your religious autonomy goes. All your faith-based schools, which have an ethos of, say, Christianity or Islam or whatever it may be, they will have to comply. And the minister can pick and choose on where and how these regulations apply, depending upon the size, resources, and influence of people, companies, or organizations. Different codes of practice can be placed upon different ones. So this is absolute state control of religion. This is basically state capture of not just religion, but basically it's like thought control, it's behavioral control. And it is something which is almost not even envisaged in the Constitution, and yet here it comes. So we need to be very sure about this. If we don't push back before this becomes law, it's law until it's repealed. There's a clause in the existing PEPUDA for hate speech, which the Supreme Court of Appeal has said is unconstitutional, but it's been enforced for 21 years. It's still in force because the matter's now before the Constitutional Court and they haven't judged on it. So we need to understand, if we don't stand up and push back now, we're going to live with these consequences, and they will be very, very destructive.
What an informative night, and I'm just as you're talking, the director Swain, I'm getting to understand how important these things are. Especially, I'm trying to outline the matter to a layman, just an ordinary South African who is in the church, or someone who is because I've seen that when I went through it, you also even go as far as the employers, what the employers will also be facing, in regards to some so-called discriminatory actions, and that the employees would actually now be, I would say, claiming, or alleging that they have actually occurred. So it means we're having a kind of a vast kind of problem, which is not only going to affect the religious sector, but it would affect humanity, not only in South Africa, but even out of South Africa's borders. But what needs to be done now, as we're talking about the matter, because obviously we need to deliberate of these matters, and once you've deliberated, then we know for sure that we are holding hands to make sure that we are actually now whether pushing back or opposing or so forth. So as for me, I'm standing here hearing what you're talking and what you say, what you're outlining, and you have put a couple of points which I believe people can take home even tonight, especially when you give an example of the wording, give an example of whether how the professor, and you quote, that was a quote. It was nothing coming from you, but it was a quote, which I just want to make it clear to the people what the professor, has actually written there. And you also have outlined, whether someone who ministers, or whether you're preaching a word as a pastor, and after preaching that word, someone is offended of what you've just said, or someone go and they use the same words that you spoke, and they speak it on the other person, and this person feels like they're discriminated or against because of what? Of the preaching of the word. But isn't it that now the fight that we are actually now in today, we're fighting the written word. We are in the last days, and we definitely are fighting the written word. And as I said, that how I have monitored and seen on how things are today is that we don't even have politics no longer. The fight that we have, even in South Africa and the whole entire world, is a spiritual war, and which needs people to come on board and begin to position themselves accordingly. So is there any particular, or when I went through this, I checked on I mean some other backgrounds, people who are really rallying up after this and such, and some are being paid to really do this, and it's propaganda. Are there certain, I mean, specific groups that feels like they are discriminated, whether the LGBT or is there a group that feels that they are discriminated, or there is a propaganda like in general that seeks to put down religion, or we can put it as the faith of the people? Is there any? Are we in a fight here? If I may ask the question, is this a fight against humanity, or is this a raw fight against the church, or a raw fight against what is this? Well, how do you when you look at this and you are advocating for this, you are facing this as a fight which we've been told about, that you are interfering in to make sure that you are advocating for the people. And is this a fight? Because if it's a fight, there's one thing why I'm asking the question, Director Swain, is that we can't get in a boxing ring, and while we are trying to brush it off and we are trying to make peace. You see, there's a time to make peace and there's a time to break and lose. And the problem is with the people of faith, they always make peace. They don't have the character where they just need to cut that ear. It's like there's a time where you need Peter to come on board and just cut the ear, and we'll talk after. And it sounds very robust to do that, which is permissible in the politics. But I want to ask now, when will the people of faith, because my question is this a fight? And if it's a fight, when will the people of faith really put their gloves on and really fight for what is right?
Well, let me just maybe give you another case that we're dealing with at the moment to give you an indication. Now, this is under the existing PEPUDA, so this is without the amendment. We're dealing with a case at the moment with a young evangelist who lives in KZN in Chatsworth called Simeon Chetty. And this young man was invited to an outreach, basically. And during the outreach, he declared his faith in Jesus. He said, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, that he is the one true God. Now, what happened thereafter was, because there were people in the audience who were of the Hindu faith, 3 Hindu organizations launched actions against him under the PEPUDA Equality Act, because they said that what he was saying amounted to hate speech. Now, that is something which is now going to court. They are asking that this young man, I think he's 24 or 25 or thereabouts, he must pay 400,000 rands worth of damages to them. He must serve 200 hours of community service. He must make an unreserved apology for what he said, and he must commit to never, ever say such things in public again. That is under the existing PEPUDA Act. This is a case that we, FORSA, have been involved with and are involved with currently. So you can imagine that if this PEPUDA amendment bill goes forward, that will just be the beginning of sorrows. So we have an opportunity right now. Everybody has an opportunity right now to literally get on your computer, get on your smartphone, and just simply type in www.forsa.org.za, click on the petition, enter the very simple steps, and send it in. If we can push back strongly enough, then we believe that we can stop this amendment bill in its tracks. I just want to maybe just say something by contrast as well. I was invited with Advocate Nadine Badenhorst this week to speak to the United Ulama Council of South Africa. That is the council of people who basically oversee all those in the Islamic faith of South Africa. And we had a talk like this with them. I got a phone call today from a man in KwaZulu-Natal who said that they are going to be speaking on this in all 1,600 of their mosques in KZN, and they are printing out for every single person a petition so that they can fill it in on the spot, and they're going to send it into government. That is how seriously other faiths take this. The question that I think we have to ask ourselves if we're speaking about Christians is, even though we say, yes, there's 80% of us, we are the majority, do we actually do anything to stand up for our faith? I'm not saying that we are blaming anybody. We're not trying to hurt anybody or harm anybody. We are simply standing up for our legitimate constitutional rights. We are guaranteed freedom of conscience, religion, belief, thought and opinion. Section 15 of the Constitution specifically guarantees it for people of faith. And if we sit back and do nothing and say nothing, if we do not push back, then we will literally have only ourselves to blame if we find ourselves living in a world that we would never want to live in. And by the way, it's not just for us that we should be doing it. This is our watch. Whatever we let fly by us, our children are going to be living with too.
So thank you so much, Dr. Swain. According to the Constitution of this nation, as you spoke now in Section 15, that we are permissible to freedom of religion. We are permissible. We are actually, I would say, we have a say. We have a right to do what we do, and that comes because now what really puzzles me when we're standing for people of all walks of faith and religion, then you find a Hindu community in whatsoever that happened in KZN of the young evangelist, where he mentioned the name of Jesus being the Savior and so forth, and to them they feel like it is, moreover, if they don't say it straight, an abomination, because I think we are coming there rather than discrimination. We come into a time where we'll be told, people will be told that it's an abomination. Are we saying that the fight is against the church of Jesus Christ? Is that because what to get clear here is that all other religions are enjoying, if I may put it that way, but it looks like the fight is against this one, this body. Is it true? Because that's what I like the way you put it. That we're not fighting. You're saying that. You say we're not fighting them. We're not here to fight. We are actually standing for what we believe. But the fact of the matter is that this propagandized kind of actions and where people are using judiciary, litigating and so forth, and we see people being taken to courts and the churches and preachers. So is it a fight against the people of faith in all walks of faith, or the church? I need you to answer me on that one before you go. And again, my other question would be, now when we have been, or we are, a nation that has actually, whether someone believes in any God or whatever that they believe in, but we have been a nation, just to put a statement. As I said, we are a nation of Nkosi. And if it's going to be an abomination for some want to talk about the God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, we are in a definite fight. I want to just say, just to also be the second of this says, it's a fight against the church. So now we need to know who is the church, because now if the church is the one who is ignorant, who does not comply to what needs to be done, if the church is the one when FORSA comes and calls them on board, if the church is the one that when you are being called by the civil rights organization that advocates for you, you are being told to go into www.forsa.org.za and be part of the petition of pushing back this amendment bill. And now, if the church is that ignorant, and we're calling for the church in this magnitude, and they are not coming on board, and we therefore suffer the consequence because of we are suffering the numbers. So we will be the one blamed. Yes, you said, in our generation and in the generation coming. So now to conscientize the church in this message, to say this must be done, we need to say also to bring it out, because I know it's a talk between myself and you. Now, a talk that will touch the leadership of the church. Now, if the leadership will fail the people that they lead by not taking a stand, because there are so many things that we are fighting for, we're fighting for church to open, we're fighting for this and that. And hence I always say it is important that we actually now draw ourselves closer to become a legislative house. And once we know how to purport and put together laws and actually on how even also to push them back, then we'll be able to deal with this accordingly. So we're calling for all professionals in the law and in the sector to come on board and absolutely hold hands with FORSA, especially on this matter, so that we can push it back. And moreover, I think the other thing that needs to be done, Director Swain, is war is been declared. To be honest with you, war is been declared, but they are not fighting civil. They are not fighting in a way that they show harm, but they are fighting by the use of the Roman law. So they are using the law. So it will come to the Sunday laws, and all those laws will be implemented, and they will be implemented in our presence. Once nothing done, because of the church is not the one that is standing for what needs to be stand for. So the fight is against the church. So let the church rise. Let the church come on board. Now, to what you've just said, now I'm adding up as we are having this conversation to say, let the church rise. And I'm also coming down to say to all of us, may we go out there. I've done it myself, and I've said it to other people who absolutely share the same sentiments and the same narrative, to say, do it now, don't do it tomorrow, do it now. We're doing it now. Now one will ask, Kairos TV is it is a TV that stands for the Kairos. We stand for the times of God, the final wait. So we're not going to be here to be told not to speak about Jesus. Someone says we are going to mute you. Hence, we are not using anybody. Hence, we are not actually being under anyone. So we are at liberty here to talk about Jesus. Now, anyone who comes and tell us we can't talk about Jesus, it means we must close all the schools of all Islamic schools must be able. So now we can't close and find this nation of South Africa becoming a one-sided. As much as they want to please the other groups, they need to make sure that they maintain their origin. South Africa belongs to God, and I believe that that's what we are going to stand for, and moreover, standing for the origin of origins. Exactly, that's what we stand for. So now, in your last words, if I have to twist your just a little bit of your hand. Now you touch something very, very important when you touch on the evangelist, not to being taken through the courts, and this is what these people want him to pay, the 400,000 rand, do this community work and so forth. So this can happen to many pastors. It can happen to many. It's happening to him. It can happen to anybody. so that they are actually being now silenced, that they can talk about it. And obviously, we will talk even when we are under the ground. We'll keep on talking. But now, what would be your talk? What would be your last talk as an advocate of this move, as the one who brings advocacy and also full of love, because we need to have love and give even our brethren the opportunity to come. And some they have not seen the need, but now they might actually also be aware. So now I'm just ahead a little bit. And where can pastors and bishops and people of faith, wherever in the churches, communities, where can they come? How can they connect with you? Because you know what we need? We need a permanent kind of a structure where when we deal with this matter, there is a community already. Is there anywhere where they can register with FORSA and maybe find some membership there or something, or subscribe? Is there anything that they can do to hold hands so that when such news are actually now meaning a premiere, then we can absolutely all of us get meaning the beauty of the news that are being shared? Is there anything of some sort, any platform where they can join, partner, subscribe? Anyhow, we need the church to rise. We need the church to rise. There's no time to sleep. There's no time to hide behind the pulpit, hide in the midst of the walls of the church. It's about time we go back to what he said. Jesus said there, he said, now I shall what? Destroy this tabernacle and rebuild on the third day. So the walls must be broken so that we come out and start being active and also adhering the what you call the Great Commission. So where can they actually now partner with FORSA and hold hands even beyond this PEPUDA bill?
Okay, well, thank you. I think it's very good, because I know that people on your channel are Christians, to remember that the Bible commended the sons of Issachar because they understood the times. And there is absolutely no benefit in being ignorant of the times in which we live. So one of the things that we 4SA want to do is to make sure that we do inform people about what the issues are that we face. And everything that you've asked for is available on our website, www.forsa.org.za. People can go on there. You can subscribe to our newsletter. You can join us in as much as you can allow us the privilege of representing you when we deal with some of these matters. For example, under the lockdown regulations, which, as you know, were very unfairly discriminatory in our view against the church, particularly against all religious organizations, against all religious workers who were not even recognized as essential workers. We stood for fairness, for fair treatment, for government to basically prove and show that what it was doing to limit our rights was reasonable and justifiable and based upon science, which of course it was not. And having done that, we basically then were able to, with the support of, at that point, at 1.18 million people, we were able to then get a place to speak to the president when he was consulting with the religious community. So it is so important that you support freedom of religion South Africa. You can join us, you can sign up to our newsletter, and certainly please do consider donating financially to support us, because we literally are only able to do what we do if people voluntarily give to us to support work that we do. And if you think that what we're doing is valuable, if you think that this show is valuable, if you think that the information that you're receiving is valuable, if you think it's valuable that there is an organization that will go to court on your behalf, if you think that it's valuable that there's an organization that will speak to government on your behalf, that will provide resources to help you have your say in our democratic process, if you think that's a valuable thing, then please add value to us. We can only continue doing what we do if people support us financially. So that would be a very important thing to do. If you would just click that donate button that you'll see, that would be a very, very positive and powerful thing. But the most important thing people could do right now is to click on that submission link, make your submission, make your voice heard on this PEPUDA amendment bill, push back against it. It is unconstitutional. It will literally be the death knell of religious freedom in this country if it goes through in its current form. And we need to stand up, all of us, united, and say no. If we do, I believe we can stop this. If we don't, then we're going to live with the consequences, us and our children.
Thank you, Mr. Swain. Thank you so much. I would absolutely close the discussion and also agree with each and every word you spoke, especially when it comes to as far as the donation. You see now, which is what I want to put clear to the people. We need to support our narrative. You cannot afford not to support your narrative. You know, you need to support a narrative that is in line with what you believe, and we need to stop supporting things that absolutely will be of destruction. We need to make sure we bring support and support FORSA when they are taking, meaning this kind litigations. I mean, even cases that are taken to court that needs advocates and so forth. And I want to say to you that I have a message for you now that I know I haven't told you, but I wanted to tell you live because this is muchly of a, kind of a partnership that we are coming with. There is a parliament that has been raised in South Africa, which is parallel. And it also stands legislatively and also standing for the body of Christ, meaning moreover, and the global community. We are coming out to say, would be holding hands with FORSA. This is Kingdom Parliament. We'll be holding hands with FORSA. The legislature will be holding hands with you in whatsoever, how can I put this? Whatsoever, force or need that you have in order to execute certain what that you have in your office. Will be coming to hold hands with you and make sure that we enforce that needs to be enforced. You know, we're bringing our lawyers, we're bringing our advocates and so forth, so that we can fight this thing together. So we definitely are in agreement to stand with you to make sure that also this amendment bill is pushed back. So submissions are made, and I can see even some of the leaders that are here, they are absolutely beginning. So now don't shy away. Just talk to us, share with us your whereabouts wherever you are. And as we come into a closure, the end of this broadcast, but not the end, of this talk. Let's continue talking in our homes. Let's continue sharing the post. Let's make sure that we share this even video. Let's tell others what's really happening. Now, let's share. Yes, I can see leaderships are coming on board. Let's share as far as we could share. And make sure that you talk to pastors. Give them this. Let's share. And one thing that I would love to say before we all go is that the time is come. The time is come where we need to wear a face of a lion. Now, I'm going to put this straight so that we understand what we're talking about. We are not afraid. You know, there's something that people think we are not afraid. We're not scared of the enemy, however he can come. You see, this is very serious. People think we are scared of them because they are having some, underground and people who are propagandizing and Freemasonry. Can I say this? We have been here and whether in parliament and anywhere, we are not afraid to stand. And we are going to stand. And in this season, for the very first time, this nation is about to experience a group of people that they've never experienced before. They are going to experience a militant body. And that will stand out. And whether financially, whether by the law, that will stand out and begin to profess and fighting for what is right for the people of this nation. And I want to put it out there so that we can understand each other. If I'm speaking on the side of politics, I've got the right to say that. I can say it because of where I am actually administering and presiding. But I want to say to our brothers and sisters out there, we are not going to be scared to stand out and speak the truth. The truth will set the people of this nation free. So we need to be real. If the fight is come, if the war is being launched out, We are not fighters that we don't want to see blood, but we are going to fight in prayer. But moreover, we convert our prayers, we convert our preachings and prophecies in law. Give those who are runners and advocates of such. Let's fund those organizations. Fund them. Fund them from wherever you are affiliated. Let's fund them. Like now today, I'm having in the studio none other than Director Mark Swain. And the FORSA become our home. Let's fund FORSA. We're not going to hide. I don't work with people who hides. Why are you hiding who you are working with? I can't hide that I'm supporting what they do. I go live because I went live when I said Jesus is Lord. So it doesn't, I can't even hide anywhere. Even if when I like it, I'm going to go live in the parliament. I go live like that. So I'm saying to all of you right now that are watching, and thank you so much to see Mr. Swain is now on board. And thank you so much because I know we are in this banana republic, which is going to become the Republic of God. And we are saying South Africa must go back to God. And we are in support of what is happening right now. But it lasts because I'm just talking because we have a privilege to talk now. And I think sometimes we need just to talk. We have had people talking. Let's have people who are talking constructively, who are talking under even the influence even of the canonicity. So we can be able to safeguard humankind. Not only the people in the church, but we are called for humankind. But I want to say to us, let us support organizations that are really standing and advocating for your let the church rise. Let the church rise. This is about time. However, it's about time. Let the church rise. We are rising. Now, we are not just rising haphazardly, we are rising and we are allowing, meaning the canonicity of the very law to become the origin of humanity. And I know that's how it will sink. If it's war, we take it on and take it by its horns. And if they have to take it to court, let's all take it to court. Let's do it as it has to be done. And stand in prayer, stand in intercession, and make sure that we keep this country and this republic lit under fire, and make sure that we allow the angels also to run about the whole nation. We cannot afford to lose the origins, even when you are living in the times of revolution and evolution. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And I want to say to all of you, what a night we had with Director Michael Swain, the Director of Freedom of Religion, South Africa. And we are so charged up, and we are now being educated on what is absolutely happening. And we are going to take our stand, and we are going to take our position. And I'm calling for all leadership to share this broadcast as many times as you can, so that others who never heard can actually catch. And we have taken much of your time because we wanted to hear more from him. And thank you so much for coming so far. Remember, your preaching might be cut short. You might preach and you might actually find yourself in the court of law because you did not stand when you were supposed to stand. Let us stand. Let us actually cast away any ignorance and make sure that we become a force that has never been seen in this republic. Thank you so much. the church must rise. And for that reason, to all of you, Kairos TV, from myself, is the final word. And may God bless you. May God bless South Africa. Amen.